When Floyd Mayweather Jr. finally broke his silence on Jake Paul versus Gervonta Tank Davis, he didn't waste any time with pleasantries. He said what he always says: some people know how to fight, and some people know how to sell fights. And he made it clear which category each man belongs in. Mayweather praised Tank Davis's skill and power, calling him a formidable force in the ring. But for Jake Paul, the praise came with a firm boundary. As long as he continues to fight MMA guys and YouTubers, Mayweather said, he's going to continue to look good and shine. But once he fights a real fighter that can really fight, it's not going to be that good. It was the same message he has delivered for years. There are levels to this, and Jake Paul hasn't yet reached the one where elite champions live. To Mayweather, the YouTuber turned boxer is a savvy entertainer who knows how to move the needle and make good money. He even admitted he likes watching it, but he drew a sharp line between entertainment and elite competition. In his view, a matchup between Jake Paul and a prime Tank Davis would be purely for a payday, not for prestige. A win over Paul would add nothing to Tank's legacy, but a loss would be disastrous. Mayweather's take wasn't a personal attack. It was a business reality from a man who mastered the business of boxing better than anyone in history. And if you're wondering why Mayweather's opinion still carries so much weight, remember that he isn't just a former champion. He's an architect of the modern pay-per-view era. He understands how to build a spectacle, how to turn a rivalry into a global event, and how to make sure the numbers on the contract match the noise and headlines. So when he says a fight is about money, it's not an insult. It's an observation from the man who wrote the playbook. That playbook is exactly what seems to be guiding Gervonta Davis as he heads toward a November exhibition with Jake Paul in Atlanta. The fight, set to stream live on Netflix, has been met with a mix of excitement, confusion, and outright scorn from the boxing world. At the heart of the debate is a simple, unavoidable fact: the massive size difference between the two men. Paul, a natural cruiserweight, often weighs in around 195 to 199 pounds and stands over 6 feet tall. Davis is a lightweight champion who has built his career at 135 pounds and stands 5'5" 1/2 inch. We're not talking about a small jump in weight. We're talking about a difference of nearly 65 pounds and a significant reach advantage. In a sport built on weight classes, that kind of disparity is impossible to ignore. British heavyweight Dave Allen was one of the first to call the matchup farcical. He said that while Davis could probably flatten Paul, the whole event feels like a cash grab for both sides. Promoter Eddie Hearn echoed that sentiment, suggesting that Davis might be half checked out of the sport and more interested in a big payday than in defending his championship legacy. Hearn's point wasn't that Davis can't fight anymore. It was that his priorities may have shifted. When a fighter starts thinking more about the paycheck than the performance, it changes the way they prepare and the way they compete. For boxing purists, the matchup feels like a betrayal of the sport's core principles. Weight classes exist for a reason: to ensure fair and safe competition. When you put a lightweight in with a cruiserweight, you're not just bending the rules, you're breaking them. Boxing writer Keith Idec was quick to point out that any athletic commission that sanctions this as a legitimate professional bout would be acting irresponsibly. It's just not safe for someone that big and someone that small to fight each other, he said. The only way to make the fight happen is to label an exhibition, which comes with its own set of modified rules, often shorter rounds, larger gloves, and understanding that the bout is more about entertainment than a definitive outcome. That's a point Dave Allen hammered home as well. He sees Jake Paul as a decent area-level fighter who trains hard and respects the sport, but he also recognizes Paul's limitations. I watched one fight against Tommy Fury, the only professional boxer in and around his prime years, and he got beat. Allen said, to him, Paul's record against retired MMA fighters and other non-boxers doesn't prove he's ready for an elite talent like Tank Davis, regardless of the size advantage. Allen's final verdict was blunt: I certainly wouldn't be paying a penny to watch it. It's just absolutely ridiculous. He argued that if Davis is in his prime, he should be chasing legacy fights against other champions in his division, like Teofimo Lopez or Shakur Stevenson, not taking a big money exhibition against a much larger opponent. Lamont Roach Jr., who fought a controversial draw with Davis earlier this year, was even more direct. He accused Davis of ducking their rematch in favor of a more lucrative spectacle. I told y'all from the beginning, I got the skills to pay the bills, Roach said, expressing his frustration that a legitimate title rematch was being sidelined for a crossover event. He even hinted that if the Davis fight doesn't materialize, he'd be open to facing Shakur Stevenson, another top fighter in the division. Roach's comments highlight a growing tension in the sport. What happens when a mandatory title defense is less appealing financially than a high-profile exhibition? For fighters like Roach, it feels like being pushed to the back of the line for reasons that have nothing to do with boxing. Of course, not everyone sees the matchup as a total farce. Manny Pacquiao, a legend who's fought across multiple weight classes, gave Jake Paul a nod of respect. He has talent. Pacquiao said in an interview he can fight in a real boxing match, so he can be a boxer. However, Pacquiao also stressed that boxing needs competitive matchups, not just exhibitions. He even threw his own name into the mix, saying he'd be willing to fight Tank Davis if Davis would move up to 145 or 147 pounds. That's a far more reasonable weight jump than the one required to face Jake Paul, and underscores just how much of an outlier the Paul Davis matchup is. Even UFC President Dana White, who has had a long and often contentious public rivalry with Jake Paul, has offered some grudging praise. White acknowledged that the Paul brothers have brought a lot of attention to combat sports, and that Logan Paul, in particular, is brilliant at promotion. He's also been clear that he doesn't think Jake's fights are fixed, just that he's been fighting opponents who are far past their prime. White's take, much like Mayweather's, separates the business from the sport. He recognizes that Jake Paul knows how to get people to watch, even if what they're watching isn't elite-level boxing. So, how does a fight like this even come together? The answer, as always, is money. The proposed catch weight of 195 pounds is a number that has left many fans shaking their heads. For Davis, a natural 135-pounder, to even consider fighting at that weight seems absurd. But as one commentator pointed out, the hypocrisy in the boxing community is thick. I've been trying to figure this out, he said. Why was I a Tank hater for wanting to see him go up 5 pounds to fight Teofimo Lopez? And all of you were saying, you want Tank hurt? Then I'm convinced. Okay, he's too small, but he can fight Jake at 195. It's a fair point. The logic seems to bend depending on the size of the paycheck. And the paycheck for this fight is expected to be massive. With Netflix streaming the event to its global subscriber base, the potential audience is far larger than what a traditional pay-per-view could deliver. This is a fight designed for casual fans, for people who know the names Jake Paul and Tank Davis but may not follow the sport week to week. It's a tentpole event designed to draw eyeballs and create a spectacle. And in that sense, it's already a success. The internet has been buzzing since the announcement, with everyone from hardcore boxing fans to casual observers weighing in. Even Tank's own fan base has been divided, with some supporting the move as a smart business decision and others calling it a sellout. The question of who has more to lose is a complicated one. On the surface, it seems like Davis has everything to lose and little to gain. A win over a YouTube-returned boxer won't enhance his legacy, but a loss would be a stain on his record that he could never erase. For Jake Paul, the opposite is true. Even a competitive loss to a pound-for-pound talent like Tank Davis would earn him a new level of respect in the boxing world. A win, however unlikely, would be the upset of the century. Paul seems to understand this dynamic, and his confidence has been unwavering. He believes his size, strength, and dedication to the sport will be enough to overcome Davis's skill and experience. Many analysts, however, remain unconvinced. They see the fight as a modern-day David and Goliath story, with Davis as a smaller but more skilled fighter. They point to Davis's knockout power, his speed, and his ring IQ as the factors that will ultimately decide the fight. They argue that while Paul has improved, he still lacks the defensive polish and instincts of a world-class boxer. One commentator predicted that the fight will be boring as hell, with Davis jabbing the body and moving, while Paul misses with big, looping overhands. It's a cynical take, but it's one that's shared by many who believe the size difference will force Davis to fight a cautious, defensive fight. This is where the exhibition label becomes so important. An exhibition is not a fight to the finish. It's a performance, designed to entertain without either fighter taking unnecessary risks. That's why many insiders believe the bout will go the distance. with both men putting on a good show, but neither truly going for the knockout. It's a safe bet for both fighters. Davis gets a massive payday without risking a loss on a professional record, and Paul gets a chance to share the ring with a superstar without facing the full force of his power. There's also a sense that Davis may be looking at this fight as his swan song. He announced in late 2024 that he planned to retire after 2025, citing frustration with the pressures of the sport. At a recent press conference, he was even more direct, declaring, "I grab money, I'm out." This exhibition could be his way of cashing in one last time before hanging up the gloves for good. As one analyst put it, Davis seems to be following the Mayweather blueprint. Pick your spots, maximize your earnings, and get out before the sport gets you. In the end, the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis exhibition is a reflection of where boxing is in 2024. It's a sport caught between tradition and spectacle, between legacy and entertainment.